Hello, welcome to yet another session of PhD is a Philosophical Drama. I'm your host Amog, and today we have a very interesting guest with us. She did her PhD at the University of Göttingen in Germany, and later on founded Academia Plus, which is an interesting science communication and career development platform. So let us welcome Dr. Madhura Panse on our show and know about her journey in more details. Hi,
Hello.
Madhura.
Hi, Amog. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today to share your journey. I
Thank you for having me.
yeah, I hope you have a good time.
Yes, yes.
So,
Uh,
directly delving into the into your journey, I want to
yeah.
start with the traditional setup of academic education that we have. You do a bachelor's. If you're interested in science, that is,
Yeah.
then you do a master's, and then you go for a PhD.
Right.
Was it something similar for your journey, or how was it?
Absolutely. It was it was exactly like that. Um, but somewhere, even while doing my bachelor's, I knew that I wanted to do a PhD for some reason.
Okay.
I knew that or I was keen to dive deeper into a particular concept to
Mm-hmm.
understand that particular concept. So that was something always at the back of my mind. And then as I completed my bachelor's and master's, and I sort of understood what my interests were. So by the time, so I did my master's in Bremen, and I did my
Mm-hmm.
thesis in a diabetes research lab. So by that
Okay.
time, I was kind of sure that I wanted to do my PhD also in diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
There was never a thought at that point that I should not do a PhD. Because
Mm-hmm.
I thought that research is something that I love because that gives me a chance to dive deeper into a particular topic, and
Mm-hmm.
B, maybe contribute in some way to the society. That was a very nice thought at
Yeah,
that point.
I think we all
So,
have.
yeah. So then I started applying left, right, center to all diabetes labs in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and I did my PhD in Tübingen, by the way, not Göttingen.
Oh, sorry.
So
Yeah, to
no
yeah,
worries, no. They are similar sounding, and both
yeah,
of them
yeah.
are student towns. So then I completed my PhD. So it was exactly like that. And one of our faculties, in fact, before I left for my masters, I don't know if you remember him, Bhore sir from Garware. I don't know if you've heard of him or not.
Not really.
Yeah. So he was like, if you're going abroad, you better complete your PhD and come back. Don't come without that.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
don't know, that thought kind of stuck in my head. But yeah, it was pretty much the same straight path as you mentioned.
Right. But why was that kind of advice given to you? Do you know?
Probably, I feel probably because he knew. I don't know. Now you have done your PhD from India, right? So maybe
Right.
we can compare that at some point. But he felt that it since I'm already getting exposed, I'm getting such a good exposure outside. Why not I just
Mhm.
use that kind of networking to finish off my PhD and then think of moving back, because I told him back then also that I'm planning to move back. It's not that I want to settle outside. So
Okay.
probably that's the kind of advice he gave me at that point. So I don't know.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's always an important thing to have the right mentor who gives you the right advice. It's
Yeah.
I think key factor.
Unfortunately, I think that most of the mentors that I had, I mean, I wouldn't say unfortunately, I would just say that they are more exposed to academia. They're not
Okay.
exposed to, like most of the mentors we currently have in the education system per se. I think they come, very few of them are keen on encouraging students to pursue industry. I mean, I may
Mhm.
be wrong here, but as far as I've heard the scenario even now, it's
Okay.
many of them. It's because of the experience they have had, of course. So I would have in fact loved to have would have had, a variety of mentors who would have told me that, these are the pathways that you can follow. And then
Right.
I can choose between them. So, but that
Right.
didn't really, yeah. So,
Yeah. I mean, our show is basically we are trying to, inculcate that kind of an attitude where we have this at least
right.
basic understanding where people know about more options at least.
Yeah, right, right.
Uh, but let's go to your time in Germany.
Hmm.
You said you were already in Germany for your masters, and then you
Yeah,
decided to stay in Germany for your PhD.
right.
Again, was it because it was easier to just stay in the same country and transition right there, or
Yeah,
did you have something?
absolutely.
Okay, it was a very
I
good
took the easy path
decision
out.
that way.
I took the easy path out because my master thesis guide, she was very well connected with a lot of people,
Mhm.
and I loved the work that I did during my master's. So as I said, during that time itself, I knew that I wanted to do a PhD in diabetes.
Right.
So uh, I would say choosing the right kind of project during your master's is also very helpful if you want to
Mhm.
really pursue a PhD. So
Right.
I applied to labs and I gave a reference, and they were just cold emails. I mean, I sent a lot of emails, and I
Yeah.
probably got replies from only 2% of them maybe.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, it was easy. So that's why that, and secondly, I was very sure that, so this is a very niche topic that I wanted to, do a PhD in. It was
Right.
not like I wanted to apply to programs. If I probably would have wanted to apply to
My
programs, I would have,
question was exactly that
yeah,
because when you think about doing a PhD, many of the Indian students they really want to go to the States.
yes,
If they have like a longer plan of staying in academia, it's
yeah,
a notion that you go to the States, you have a 6-year PhD, and then you
yes.
come back as a faculty member.
Yeah, so I was never attracted to go to the US for a variety of reasons that I don't want to go into right now.
Okay, sure.
But so that's why that was out of question. And within Europe itself, I think apart from Germany, I also applied to labs maybe in Switzerland, but
Mhm.
mostly it was Germany itself because, as I said, it was easier and the
Yeah.
transition would have been easier. And yeah, so that was one of the main reasons.
Right, right. So, was German language one of your limitations while doing your master's and PhD, or were you already trained in that language?
So masters were not a problem because it was an international. So it was a completely. The course was conducted completely in English, so that was
Mhm.
not a problem. We did learn the language, but that was mostly to make our life easier. Like if you want to go to the grocery, or if we want to,
Right.
talk to our landlord or something like that. But that was a very basic level of German that I was obligated to know during my masters. But during PhD, it was a lot of, initially it was very difficult for me because I was working in a hospital setting. So my lab
Okay.
was in a university hospital, and
Mhm.
so all the doctors, nurses, the technical staff there, they didn't know English. I mean, they had
Right.
no reason to.
Right.
If you visit any hospital now in India, they don't know. Like they
Right.
are not obligated to know English per se.
Exactly.
So that was initially that was a lot of problem because I had to collect samples from them. I had to interact with
Mhm.
them during my PhD. So then I consciously took up a course to learn the language because most of my lab also was 80% of them, I would say 95% of them were uh, either Germans or they were fluent in German. So
Right.
what used to happen sometimes is the lab meetings, they would suddenly switch to German, in the flow.
Okay.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
flow. Like
Right.
sometimes, how we switch in our local language in the flow, and I
Right.
cannot really blame them. I mean, that's the way it could happen sometimes. But then I
Yeah.
realized that I am going to be at a loss if I don't learn the language because I'm
Right.
missing out on half of the discussions. So then I consciously took up the decision to learn the language properly, and that really helped me a lot. So language then later on during the second half of my PhD was not really an issue because I was able to communicate pretty well with
Yeah.
others. Initially it was a problem.
Okay, okay, okay. Because that is always one of the hurdles in people
Yeah.
deciding to come to Europe versus going to the States or going to the UK. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's interesting. You really decided to, spend the time and effort in learning that language, and I'm sure that helped you a lot in your.
Yeah, that helped actually a lot in like non-PhD related stuff as well, because in grocery stores, because Tübingen is a very small town, and where we used to
Mhm.
live, Metzingen, that's an even smaller town.
Right.
So it's in the southern part of Germany. It's in the state called Baden-Württemberg, and
Mhm.
it is a very kind of old school town. So there are a lot of old people there who are not really acquainted with English language per se. So it really helped me communicate even there, because grocery stores and all, if you go to Berlin or any other big city, then the grocery stores, the people there might even communicate in English, but that was not the case here.
Right.
So
Right. And how was your was it like a 3-year PhD or a 4-year PhD, and how was the process of doing a PhD? I'm
so
I'm asking a very broad question. I know it can't be explained in
no,
that
no. So
easy way, but
I think your voice broke a little there. So if I heard your question correctly, you are asking about the duration, right?
yeah, how long was it? Because European
Yeah.
PhDs are really short compared to
Yes.
other places.
Right. So I started in 2012 October, and I submitted my thesis and defended and everything around again October 2016. So the entire
Okay.
thing was around
4 years.
4 years long. But that was mainly because of my boss, who was not so keen on the 3 publication rule or whatever it is, like
Okay.
you should have 3 publications or something like that. In fact, she was quite okay also with, having one of my papers, in fact, has published negative results. So she was that kind
Wow.
of a, yeah. So apart from the other maybe minor issues that I may have had with her, this was one thing that I really admired, that she was very, she was okay with negative results.
But I'm
So
really curious to know because which journals really
it
allow
was
publishing
actually
results?
so it that was the way that she actually presented. So it was a journal called Diabetologia. I don't know if you've heard of it. So
Okay.
Diabetologia is they publish mainly diabetes related stuff. So we basically I on now I don't know if can I go technical? I,
Yeah, yeah, sure,
I
sure.
was
It's
I was
interesting to
working
know.
on this. I was working on this receptor called G protein coupled receptor,
Okay.
GPR40 it was, and we were trying out antibodies to detect the receptor. And there was not a single antibody available in the market back then which could detect it properly.
Hmm.
So that was the paper we published. So it was a negative result per se, but she was very confident that if we present it in the right manner, it should get accepted, and it was accepted. So
Wow. That's
yeah, so
something
that was
because
one of the first papers, I think, in which I was the second author. So
right.
so yeah, in that sense, it was a good learning per se in the first year, at least first 1 2 years. Um, yeah, so I kind of completed in 4 years,
Hmm.
3.5 to 4 years. So when I joined, it was, I think, a 2.5 to 3 year contract, because this was an ongoing program at their lab,
Hmm.
in which I joined in the last phase. So the funding kind of ended then after two
Right.
and a half, 3 years, and then they had some additional funding for me until I finished my writing and defending and so on.
Right. Right.
So it was that way. It was not much of a pressure to publish per se, that I have to have 3 to 4 publications. But coincidentally, what happened was the lab was very small,
Hmm.
so each one of us ended up working on each other's projects. So whatever papers were published, I think all of us were in all the papers, just
Yeah.
changing the order. You know how it is.
Mhm. Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
That's very interesting, and I'm really like amazed that because today most PIs, if you ask them about negative results, they are just gonna go into the dustbin. It's
Yeah,
not
I
going to
think
go
what,
anywhere.
yeah, I think what helped you, maybe if I could share some inside thing. So she, I think my boss was very secure in her financially in that entire
Mhm.
setup, because she
Right.
was not a tenure track professor per se. She was
Okay.
employed there as a PI. So
Okay.
what happened was she had to raise grants, of course, but those grants were not. So her position in the setup was not dependent on the money that she raised.
Right. Right.
So I think that really helped in the kind of decisions that she could make, with respect to publication, is what I feel. Because nowadays that's the biggest issue. PIs, they have to raise money to secure their position
Right.
in some way or
No,
the
but
other. So
I'm very sure a lot of professors are also not very keen in publishing negative results.
yeah,
That's why I'm really amazed by this, that your PI was really for selling that story.
yeah. But there are
Right.
two sides to this, I feel. Because if you are someone who is, you have that kind of attitude, your research is also going to go very slowly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really, so I mean, it worked for me, but it may not really work for someone who's, very ambitious and want to have, like, I don't know, some publications at hand or
Right.
something.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Given that the culture is very different than where you came from. I know you were there for your masters, but there is
yeah.
a change in the surroundings, a change in, you said language was one of the issues. But how was the weather and the working culture actually affecting you as a student as well as a person?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Oh, weather really affects. I
Right.
winter is really very, very depressing. I
Right.
mean, especially the core winter, when it starts getting dark around 3:34 in the
Yeah.
afternoon. It's really depressing, because when you reach the lab, it's barely sunlight, and when you leave the
Yeah.
lab again, there's no sunlight.
Yeah.
So that really affects. Weather really affects, and especially if you've had a bad day at work, it really, accentuates. Um, with the train. So I had to take a train from Metzingen,
Just
where
lost
I
your
used to live.
signal for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're. Yeah.
I'm back?
Yeah. You're back.
Okay. So, yeah, as I said, weather used to really add the depressing thing.
Yeah.
Act as a depressing thing. I used to commute by train. So I used to live in Metzingen, and I used to take a train of around 30 to 40 minutes to go to Tübingen every day where I used to work. So the train journeys used to kind of rejuvenate me then. Especially if I've had a bad day or something. Work culture wise, it was quite good. So there was no, drama or anything like that. Like no major drama, at least.
Okay.
At least. There were some things here and there, but that is to be expected, I mean, everywhere. What I felt really challenging was that the language itself, because the sentence construction in German and English is very different. So many times when I used to convey my point to them, it was the science used to get lost in between the sometimes, because because they have a different way of conveying the object is in the beginning, it's the technical part of the language. So many times that used to be challenging to, initially at least, to convey, what I want to say initially. But otherwise it was not that hard per se. After the second year, I got pretty much acclimatized to that. So it was
That's a
fine.
long time. I mean, second year, that's still a
One year,
long time.
at least I took 1 year, I feel.
Yeah.
To find my feet around and, just
Right.
everything. So 1 year at least I took.
Yeah, and was it easy to take a good break and come back to India, or
Yes.
was it not that easy?
No, it was easy. It was easy because I think European culture itself is like that. They value a lot of personal space, and Germans even more. So, in fact, people from my lab used to take a mandatory 3-week break in July, August, the summer break. I never took that because I used to reserve my holidays for December when I want to come. So almost every December I've come to India, except for the first year. yeah, except for the first year when I just joined then.
Right.
And then when I was finishing my PhD, that was quite a tough phase because I think that was the time when my contract was transitioning from, there was this expiry, there was this, yeah, the end of one contract and then the
Right.
beginning of another, and that was a transition, and there I didn't get holidays and such. But otherwise it was quite easy to, take a break every year, at least come to India. So that was not a problem.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then uh, what I sense is you had a more than better than average kind of a PhD with a good boss. Um,
Mm, yeah, it was my personal thing itself that gave me a lot of stress because because the project was a bit tough to get results out of.
right.
So I didn't get any straightforward results per se.
Mhm.
And my boss was, apart from the fact that she was okay with negative results, she used to micromanage a lot. So
Okay.
that was, yeah, so that was
Okay.
not easy at all. So I mean,
Okay.
literally, I'm sitting on the laptop doing something, and she used to come from here and tell me, no, change the color on this slide. I don't like the font
Right.
on this slide. So, so that was a bit tough.
Right. Right. But
Uh,
as you came closer to finishing your PhD, what was your thought about your next step? And did you have some active discussions with your lab people and your PI regarding that, or how did it go about?
so, at, as I finished my PhD, I think the first thing I realized is probably, and this was a result of a discussion I had with a close friend of mine. So he is a graphologist, and he, the handwriting analysis.
Right.
So
Right.
we did one session of that, and through the discussion, it came out that I'm more suited for a people-oriented kind of career.
Okay.
I'm not really suited for a very, closed door lab setting kind of a
Mhm.
career. And that was something that I was realizing towards the end of my PhD itself, that this is not something that um, I had dreamt of when I started my PhD. I had
Okay.
started with a very different notion of what a career in research would be like. And by the
Okay.
time I finished it, I had a very different, realization.
Mhm.
First thing I realized is that my whole dream of contributing to the society through research. Now that is something, if I have to see the impact of it, it has to be at least 10 to 20 years. Like, say for example, if
Right.
one particular pathway is to be converted to a drug which can be used to treat diabetes, for example, or at least
Right.
cure,
Right.
help improve diabetes, that will take at least 10 to 20 years. So that means
Right.
that for me to see the impact, first of all, it's going to take that long. And I wasn't sure if I had the patience or the persistence to go on continuing 10, 20 years, kind of just count my life in the number of experiments. That was something
Okay.
that I
Yeah.
realized that I didn't want to count, because that's how we end up, in the calendar we mark this, this week this experiment, next week this
Right.
experiment.
Right. Make a to-do list basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the life centers around that, especially.
Yeah.
So at
Yeah.
least it happened for me during my PhD, and one of the major, I would say, triggers for this was that we had to, so my husband and I, we had to cancel a planned trip because I had to look after the cells in the lab. They were dying. So
Oh dear.
nobody was there to look after them. So,
Okay.
I mean, of course, I had to do it at that point, but that kept playing in my mind, and I was like, I don't want to calculate my life in terms of experiments, first of all.
Right.
And then, secondly, if I have to see the impact, if I have to see the impact of actually doing something for the society, maybe this is not the way. That was the second realization. Thirdly, by
Okay.
that time, I was really exhausted with the whole publishing culture. Even though
Mhm.
my PI was not very pressurizing, I could sense that if I move to another lab where a PI is pressurizing, it is going to be hard with the publish or perish culture that we have currently. So
Right.
I was
Right.
not sure if I wanted to be in such kind of environment.
Hmm.
So then by the end of my PhD, I was pretty sure that I didn't want to be in research. So those were basically the thoughts.
But you at least
So
had the clarity right till the end of your PhD that this is not something I want to do next.
for
Because
a
what
long
happens is
time. Yeah.
people don't really have that clarity, and they are dependent on their mentors or people around
Yeah.
them, and it's like a rat race. You just enter it and go ahead with it. So
Right.
it's actually good for you that you actually realize that you don't really want to do this, because that's
Yeah,
important to.
maybe, yeah, that's true. So I did realize it, and then, but then I didn't know what I wanted to do. So that was the
Yeah.
exploration part.
Yeah.
That I would,
But it's at least good to know what not to do, right?
yeah,
Going forward,
exactly. That
at least
helps.
good to know.
That helps.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. Then my next question comes: how was the exploration to find out what is to be done?
Yeah, so then we moved back to India in December 2017. After that, I
Okay.
started teaching in Garware College.
Right.
This was around 2018, so I started teaching. So I thought let's explore some other, things, because during my PhD, I had supervised some students. I had taught them some things, and I thought that I might like teaching. So I
Right.
joined Garware as a teacher. I taught there for 2 semesters. Even
Hmm.
there, then I realized that rather than teaching them the academic curriculum, I enjoy discussing all the non-academic extracurricular stuff with them. So
Okay.
that was a major point there. And
And
again,
just for the benefit of our audience,
yeah,
when you say discussing non-academic stuff, what
yeah.
do you exactly mean by that?
As in the what was not in the syllabus. So say XYZ topics are to be taught in the syllabus, but I would rather enjoy discussing maybe papers with them
Okay.
related to that topic, or maybe I would enjoy discussing, what their career aspirations are. These were
Right. Like
like maybe
going out
10,
of the book,
yeah,
going out of the book,
going
as
out
well
of the
as.
book, discussing with them, or
Right.
if there
Right.
is a topic, then try to help them think in a different manner, which
Right.
is not really a part of. But as expected, very few students were interested in these kind of discussions, because
Mhm.
obviously it's not a part of the syllabus, so you don't really give it as much, importance.
Yeah,
So
and
I mean, as a
if I may say, it's not even inculcated in the education culture, so to say, in our country, right? We're
yeah,
not really taught. That's why I started with the question of traditional setup, because we're not really uh, taught to go out of that traditional setup. We
yeah,
have to
yeah.
keep following the same thing again and again.
Exactly. And I don't blame them, because it's going to be there for the exams, and they have
Right,
to, pass the exams with good grades. So
right.
I don't really blame them if they are not really interested. If I were in the, I remember myself as an undergrad student, I would have probably done the same thing.
Mhm.
So then that was one thing, and then I also realized that I don't want to keep teaching the same syllabus over and over again, because first of all, the syllabus, I mean, it's very limited, and then you have to teach it in a particular manner only. You have to give them notes, you have to give them question answers, and all of them, you have to spoon feed everything to them. And
Mhm.
I thought that as a teacher, I don't know if I will enjoy this process in the long run.
Right.
So then I taught there for 2 semesters, and after that, so I was so I also took a maternity leave for so I was pregnant by the time I finished teaching two
Mhm.
semesters. So I took a maternity leave, and then during this entire process, the whole idea of Academia Plus, started growing in my head, that we should do something that can
We
provide
are
students
losing
with
signal again.
losing signal. Am I back?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're back now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's some internet issue.
Right.
Yeah. So during this entire process, again, the idea of Academia Plus started brewing, because I thought that, to provide students with something extracurricular, why not I start something of my own? So then I started thinking how to go about it, and yeah, so that's how the exploration started. And the exploration is still going on, by the way. So it's not
Right.
that it has ended with.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how the whole thing started.
Okay. So now coming to what exactly Academia Plus does, or what you look forward to doing with Academia Plus as a platform. What is your ambition about it?
Yeah. So when I started it off, it was started basically as a platform to provide extracurricular knowledge to students. So this
Yeah.
was started around May 2020. So that was the time of the pandemic also.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was the time of it was the time of the pandemic. So I just started with one webinar, and that was similar to your concept actually. Like, what does a PhD look like? That's
Right.
the title. Yeah. And I had invited people from Europe, USA, and India. So these were my friends only. I had requested them, please come to my webinar and share your
Yeah.
experience. That is the easiest thing to do, right? When you
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
something like this.
We
So they
started
all
with friends
agreed.
as well. It was the easiest way to
Yeah.
set up. Yeah.
Yeah, so they shared their experience. So the idea there was to give students a comparison of what a PhD journey looks like in these three different countries. So it
Yeah.
started off like that.
Okay.
And then after that, I did a couple of webinars similar. So how to apply for a PhD, again, comparison between three different. Then I did a webinar of how to do science communication as a career, basically. What all it involves. So I had,
Yeah.
again, I had a friend who was a self-taught sci-commer. I had a hardcore science journalist, and also I had someone who did sci-art. So there were these three different comparisons. So that
Okay.
this was around June 2020, and by that time there were a lot of webinars taking place because of the
Right.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So I realized that I don't know, first of all, I don't know if students are really benefiting from whatever knowledge I'm giving them. And because I realized that students are really bored with the whole online webinar thing, and sometimes they would
Yeah.
just sign up and not show
Not
up.
fine.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
so then I thought that I consciously took a break from, offering something new at that point. This was around June, July 2020, and I thought that why not I upskill myself to know a little bit more about the Indian industry, academia, and what are the current
Yeah.
linkages between them. Because ultimately I wanted to provide, extracurricular thing. So
Yeah.
so since then, when I started off Academia Plus, it was kind of like a mini project wherein I just wanted to provide them with extracurricular. Over the time, it has evolved now for the past 3 years into something very concrete,
Yeah.
where I can say that there are 4 different kinds of offerings that I have for the students. But the ultimate goal is basically to strike a balance between your academic knowledge and the life skills and the non-academic knowledge that you're going to pick up along the way in order to have a sustainable career in life sciences. So in order to have that non-academic knowledge, you have to bring in your own authentic, whatever you are gift, I would say. Like, you have to identify what are your core strengths. And
Right.
so that is going to always be the goal, that it is a balance that I want to help students achieve between their academic knowledge and the non-academic, or life skills. So if you see the logo of Academia Plus, it also denotes that kind of balance between that.
Yeah.
So while doing that, now there are different ways in which you can achieve the balance. So either there are 4 different offerings currently from Academia Plus. One is a straight off career counseling, in which I offer a one-on-one counseling to the students as to the kind of career paths they can choose depending upon their individual strengths and goals and ambitions. Secondly, the second offering is a soft skills training, either a course or a session, for which I'm collaborating with educational institutions
Okay.
in order to, conduct the sessions for their students. So I
Right.
conducted one last year for the MIT college in Pune, and this year I'm now still in talks with other colleges. So that is the second offering. The third one is, volunteering opportunities like the volunteer program, which we are currently
Right.
running. The
Right.
first one in which you were a part of,
Right.
as an interview.
Right.
So through this volunteer program, basically the idea is to train students again on a one-on-one level with communication and networking skills. So if any student feels that, okay, I have these other skills, I have soft skills, I know roughly I know I want to pursue this kind of career, but I want to uh, gain networking and communication skills so that I can find the right people
Yeah.
to connect with
Yeah.
in order to pursue that kind of career. So this volunteer program is for that. So there is no monetary remuneration involved. The students will dedicate their time to generate content for the blog, and we will mentor them on a one-on-one level. So we take very few students in the program. So this time we have just 6 of them. So there was an application procedure, and they had to submit their CV and SOP, and we screened them, and we chose 6 of them. So that is the third offering. And the fourth one is like a peer learning platform, which is, as of now, it's a WhatsApp community wherein students can just be a part of the community, discuss anything that they have in mind. So we have these monthly or bi-monthly sessions called community cafe sessions. They are online because we have students all over from India. So they are online, and we conduct different topics. So let's say how to use LinkedIn, imposter syndrome, all kinds of topics that they might think are useful during whatever topic they feel. So those kind of informal. The idea is basically to have a free flow discussion, which they may not get in an academic setting. So that is the idea. And then students or community members who are within that particular city can of course meet up. And we have had a lot of such meetups in recent times where there was one person visiting Hyderabad, and then we had a community member already in Hyderabad, so they met up, and then it was good that they first got to know each other through this peer learning platform, and then they met up in person in the city. So those kind of meetups are also happening. So as of now, these are the 4 offerings that I basically have, and it's still a bootstrap venture. So it's kind of self-funded only.
Yeah.
So
That is where, I'm going to come to that part next, because
yeah,
it's amazing that what you said about what Academia Plus is actually trying to do.
yeah,
And it's interesting to see how the network grows, and it helps
yeah,
each other in the process. But science communication or something like a career development programs in general in the world, and more so in India, are not such a sustainable career, so to say. Firstly, because of the lack of funding, and secondly, because people don't really know what to do with it, and there is not a targeted audience that we can have for such a thing.
right,
What
right.
are your experiences and thoughts about this? Because for an example, if someone really gets inspired by a psychomer and decides, okay, I need to, or someone gets inspired by the work that you are doing and decides, okay, I want to set up something similar or something that can help people in physics or astrophysics.
Yeah.
But there is no, you cannot choose it as a career as of now, because it's not monetary payback in that sense.
Right.
So how do you deal with that, and what are your thoughts and suggestions to such people?
So, okay, we'll go stepwise. So, firstly, about science communication. As of now, with Academia Plus, I'm steering away from it per se. So, the only science communication that I have is if students are voluntarily wanting to contribute by writing popular science articles on the blog. So that's all. And if I may find a collaborator with whom I can maybe curate a science communication course, then that is something that I'm interested in, but I haven't really found someone now. So that is the only part for science communication. For the other thing, you're right, it's very hard to, find funding for these kind of programs, because say even if tomorrow I were to register my company as a non-profit, and if I want to apply for any kind of funding, there are no funds available. because so because my target student audience or population is undergrads to say early career researchers. Mostly at least first year to second year PhDs, and that's it, not above that as well. Because I think this group requires the most, advice and mentoring. There are a lot of programs available for PhDs and postdocs and later on. But for undergrads to, at least in India, it's very hard because they are kind of lost, this population of students, undergrads to first year PhDs. Because even post masters, it is very hard for them to decide whether to do a PhD or not. So that is something that I'm really keen on that. So as I said, so as of now, I am not looking at this from the perspective of generating revenue per se, as much as from the perspective of building an identity, because it's still in its nascent stages. So amongst the 4 offerings, whichever takes off, that is something that I can kind of focus on. So volunteer program is something that is really, getting popular, and that is not giving me any kind of revenue as of now. So where I can really, get at least some revenue is where I collaborate with the educational institutions. So there I'm really charging the institutions for my time. So they give me remuneration for conducting sessions, and that I can do. Even charging students for career counseling, what I've realized is that students are not willing to pay much, especially after the pandemic. I see that trend more, because in general the situations have become very sensitive. So I've moved from, so my clients, even if my clients are students per se, when I'm charging something, it'll be mainly the educational institutions conducting sessions for their students. So and I think that's fair, because if they are wanting me to conduct sessions for their students, they need to pay me as a resource person. So that's okay. And that really helps me also, because my aim is not to completely, sidestep what the academic curriculum is teaching, but rather supplement it with something. So it's important for me to keep collaborating with educational institutions, and as and when even if their syllabus changes, for example, with the NEP, if changes are going to take place now with the new education policy in India, and if the changes are going to be implemented now, a lot of universities are changing their syllabus. So then it becomes important for me to change my offering accordingly. For example, if some of the soft skill related modules are already taught during their academic curriculum, then I can offer them something else. So
it's
that way,
evolving a setup that you have to keep building.
It's an evolving setup. But so to answer your question about if anybody wants to start something similar to what I am doing, then I think they have 2 options. One is to go my way, wherein they don't really look at it from a revenue perspective initially, or then you completely, go the commercial way, wherein you're going to be offering them the complete package. It's, say, career counseling, something that a lot of people are already doing. They offer the complete package of start to end. So you come to us with your query, you tell us that you want to go to Germany for masters. We find the universities for you. We do the application process for you. We send the documents for you. We do the visa for you. We do everything for you. And you pay us, say, 20,000. You offer them a full package, and students are willing to pay for that for some reason. So then you either go fully the commercial way, where you charge your client but you give your client the complete package, or then you go my way, wherein you are not really focused on the revenue part as of now, and then you retain it as a bootstrap venture, at least for some time, until you figure out how the sustainable revenue is coming from. So that is something.
That's very interesting, what you're aiming at and what you're trying to do. And I find a lot of similarities between it as a research project. It's kind of your next research project where you're
I'm trying to not make it a project. because as a researcher, that's what you can try to do. I'm trying to
Right.
initially start off with a project only, but you have to kind of, you're right. There's a lot of similarity between, because as a researcher,
Right.
you tend to think like that, but then at some point you have to convert the project into, a serious company kind of thing. And as of now, it's registered as a sole proprietary.
Right.
So there's no partnership per se. So, but
Right.
yeah, so as of now, it's a project only, but I'm trying to, convert it into, a company or whatever from
Right.
that
Right.
perspective. So yeah, but yeah,
That's amazing. It's amazing. This brings me to the final point or discussion that we are having this for, which
yeah,
is what philosophy that you've been following, and
yeah,
which is also the title of the conversation that we are
yeah,
having, which is just
yeah,
keep swimming.
yes,
If you can
yes.
elaborate a bit on that and how that has helped you go forward.
Yeah, I think especially during my PhD itself, there were a lot of moments where I felt like everybody feels like giving up, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
in general, I feel that in life also, I've always had this thing that if you keep swimming or if you keep finding a solution, you will reach there eventually. So, and that way, I think I have been pretty stubborn, as in I have to, uh, like, I keep finding it. Finding, I don't, I find it hard to, sit at one place and
Do
not
nothing
do
about it.
anything.
Right.
So you have to at least try,
Right.
is what I feel. And
Right.
just keep swimming. So I feel that, as in, it's so for someone like us, where water is, where we are, for example, for fishes, they're used to water. So that is their environment.
Right.
So if you just keep going ahead and, finding your way through that, you will, find it. So I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
No, you're making a lot of sense, and I'm sure because it's not easy to keep doing what you're doing, finding what not to do in the first place and then exploring
Yeah,
your way
yeah,
through it
yeah.
to find what to do and how to go about it. It's an amazing
Yeah,
journey.
I mean, of course, there are moments when you want to give up and you want to sit and do nothing. They are there, but
Right.
I feel it's important to, because it's not you, there's nobody else who's going to come and, I mean, there are people who will come and pick you up, but you have to pick yourself up first.
Yeah,
First. So, yeah, that is,
that's amazing.
yeah,
With this, I'm gonna push you into the rapid fire
fire. Yeah,
setup. Yeah.
yeah,
So
okay.
we're not doing the rapid fire.
Okay,
I think it's going to be interesting to do the rapid fire this time. So
okay.
what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a question and give
Huh.
you three options quickly,
Okay, okay.
and without really spending time in thinking about it, you just have to give me your answer about
All
what you
right,
think about it.
all right.
So here it goes. The first question for you is, what was the best time for you during your PhD?
Hmm.
At the workbench,
Hmm.
doing the analysis,
Hmm.
or writing reports, papers?
Doing the analysis.
Doing the analysis.
Yes.
Perfect. What is more fruitful according to you? A
Hmm.
group meeting presentation,
Hmm.
presenting data at a conference, or one-on-one meeting with a PI?
Group meeting presentation.
Perfect. Nice. What do you think is better while you decide to join a PhD group? To
Hmm.
have a big group with, say, 20 plus members,
Hmm.
to have a small group with, say, 5 members,
Hmm.
or be the first student of your PI?
Hmm. I think because I have done the second, I would choose the second.
Okay.
I wouldn't know the other two.
But it worked for you,
It was a
the
small
second,
group. Yeah,
and
the
it worked
second
for
one.
you
The small
well.
group. Yeah, yeah, small group.
Okay, nice. Uh, Post a PhD, what is easier according to you, according to your experience?
Yeah.
Getting a postdoc,
Hmm.
getting an industry job, or finding something that you really want to do?
Getting a postdoc.
Getting a
Hands off.
post.
Yeah.
So going the traditional way
Yeah,
again, you know,
it's
for
easy. Whether
PhD.
you want to do it or not is up to you. But the easiest one is that for sure.
Right, right, nice.
Yeah.
And my final question
Yeah.
is, if you get a chance, and even if you don't get a chance,
Hmm.
what is that one thing you are looking to change in the current PhD setup across the world? Is it identifying core scientific research projects,
Hmm.
or having a better pay, or
Hmm.
having a better PI?
Can I say none of these and add my own?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so my thing would be that you change the entire PhD journey from focusing on minor aspects to focusing on big picture of how your PhD is going to be applicable to.
Right,
Uh, so core scientific would be probably closest to this.
closer to it.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, interesting. That was wonderful. It was very quick and to the point. Um,
Yeah, because it was
and
fire, not liar. There I would have probably taken more time.
yeah, yeah, right,
Yeah.
definitely. So, thank you so much for joining us today, and
Thanks,
I'm
Amol.
sure
Yeah.
a lot of people would get inspired by your journey, especially people who don't really want to do something, but they just do it because that's something they have to follow the norm, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, and I hope people really follow their heart and explore, even if it's a academia job. They do it because they want to do it. They do a PhD
Yes.
because they want to do it.
That is important, very important.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey with us today.
Thanks, Amok, for having me. I had a blast. And yeah, I hope
My pleasure.
people watching it also loved it. Let's
Yeah,
see now.
we have a comment. It's a great
Great
episode.
episode.
Is the
Yeah.
comment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us today, and we will join you again with another amazing story. Till then, stay tuned with us and do share our Instagram reels and our videos. See you. Bye bye.
Bye.